Billionaire comes home early and can't believe his eyes. Alejandro Hernandez was used to getting home after 9 p.m. when everyone was already asleep. That day, however, the meeting with investors in Mexico City had finished earlier than expected, and he decided to go straight home without telling anyone. As he opened the front door of the mansion in the Las Lomas neighborhood, Alejandro stopped and couldn't process what his eyes were seeing. There, in the middle of the living room, was Lupita, the 28-year-old domestic helper, kneeling on the wet floor with a rag in her hand. But that wasn't what left him frozen. It was the scene next to her. His son, Mateo, who was only 4 years old, was standing with his small purple crutches, holding a dishcloth and trying to help the young woman clean the floor. "Aunt Lupita, I can clean this part here," the blonde child said, stretching his little arm with difficulty. "Don't worry, Mateo, you've already helped me a lot today. How about you sit on the couch while I finish?" Lupita replied in a soft voice that Alejandro had never heard before. "But I want to help." "You always say we're a team," the boy insisted, trying to keep his balance on the crutches. Alejandro stood there motionless, watching the scene without being noticed. There was something about that interaction that moved him in a way he couldn't explain. Mateo was smiling, something the businessman rarely saw at home. "Okay, my little helper, but just a little bit more." "It's okay," Lupita said, accepting the boy's help. It was at that moment that Mateo saw his father standing in the doorway. His little face lit up, but there was a mix of surprise and fear in his blue eyes. "Dad, you're home early," the boy exclaimed, trying to turn around quickly and almost losing his balance. Lupita stood up, startled, dropping the rag to the floor. She quickly wiped her hands on her apron and lowered her head. "Good evening, Mr. Alejandro. I didn't know you, I'm sorry, I was just finishing up the cleaning," she stammered, clearly nervous. Alejandro was still processing the scene. He looked at his son, who was still holding the little rag, and then at Lupita, who seemed to want to disappear. "Mateo, what are you doing?" Alejandro asked, trying to keep his voice calm. "I'm helping Aunt Lupita, Dad. Look at this." Mateo took a few wobbly steps toward his father, proud. "Today I could stand on my own for almost 5 minutes." Alejandro looked at Lupita, seeking an explanation. The helper still had her head down, wringing her hands nervously. "5 minutes?" Alejandro repeated, surprised. "How is that?" "Aunt Lupita teaches me exercises every day. She says if I practice a lot, someday I'll be able to run like the other kids," Mateo explained with enthusiasm. The silence hung in the air. Alejandro felt a mix of emotions he couldn't identify: anger, gratitude, confusion. He looked back at Lupita. "Exercises?" he questioned. Lupita finally lifted her head, her brown eyes full of fear. "Mr. Alejandro, I was just playing with Mateo. I didn't mean to do anything wrong. If you want, I can." "Aunt Lupita," Mateo interrupted, quickly moving to stand between the two adults. "Dad, Aunt Lupita is the best. She doesn't give up on me when I cry because it hurts. She says I'm strong like a warrior." Alejandro felt something tighten in his chest. When was the last time he had seen his son so excited? When was the last time he had talked to him for more than 5 minutes? "Mateo, go to your room. I need to talk to Lupita," Alejandro said, trying to sound firm but gentle. "But Dad, now Mateo." The boy looked at Lupita, who gave him an encouraging smile and a signal that everything was okay. Mateo limped away with his crutches, but before disappearing up the stairs, he shouted, "Aunt Lupita is the best person in the world." Enrique and Lupita were left alone in the living room. The businessman approached, noticing for the first time that the helper had wet spots on the knees of her blue pants and that her hands were red from scrubbing the floor. "How long has this been going on?" he asked. "Sir, the exercises." "How long have you been doing exercises with Mateo?" Lupita hesitated before answering. "Since I started working here, sir, about 6 months ago, but I swear I never neglected my work because of it. I do the exercises with him during my lunch break or after I've finished everything." "You don't get paid extra for that?" Enrique observed. "No, sir, and I'm not asking for anything. I like playing with Mateo. He's a special child." "And special? How?" Lupita seemed surprised by the question. What do you mean, sir? You said he's special. Special like? Ah, Lupita smiled for the first time since Enrique had arrived. He's determined, sir. Even when the exercises are difficult and he wants to cry, he doesn't give up and he has a huge heart. He always worries if I'm tired, if I'm sad. He's a very affectionate child. Enrique felt that tightness in his chest again. When was the last time he had stopped to notice those qualities in his own son? Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please be sure to like and, most importantly, subscribe to the channel. It helps those of us who are just starting out. Now, continue it. And the exercises, how do you know what to do? Enrique continued. Lupita lowered her head again. I have experience with that, sir. What kind of experience? There was a long pause. Lupita seemed to be struggling internally with what to say. My younger brother, Carlos, was born with leg problems. I also spent my whole childhood taking him to physical therapy, learning exercises, helping him walk. When I saw Mateo, I couldn't just stand by and watch him be sad. Sad? Sir, with all due respect, little Mateo is very lonely. Mrs. Gabriela is always busy with her friends, and you, well, you work a lot. So you thought, maybe I could help? Enrique completed. Yes, sir, but if you don't want me to, I'll stop immediately. I just wanted. What did you want, Lupita? She looked up, and for the first time, Enrique saw determination in her eyes. I wanted him to smile more, sir. A child should smile every day. Enrique was silent for a moment. He thought about how many times he had seen Mateo smile in the past few weeks. He couldn't remember any. Where's Gabriela? He asked. The madam went out to dinner with her friends. She said she'd be back late. And you stayed here with Mateo? Yes, sir. He had dinner, took a bath, we did the exercises, and I was just finishing cleaning up because he spilled juice in the living room. He wanted to help me clean. Enrique looked around the room, noticing for the first time how impeccable everything was. The furniture was shining, there wasn't a speck of dust anywhere, and even the plants seemed more alive. Lupita, can I ask you a personal question? Of course, sir. Why do you work as a domestic helper? The question took Lupita by surprise. What do you mean, sir? You clearly have knowledge of physical therapy. You're good with children, you're dedicated. Why don't you work in the health field? Lupita smiled sadly. Because I don't have a diploma, sir. I learned everything taking care of my brother, but that doesn't count for anything official. And I need to work to support my family. Your family? My mom and my brother, Carlos. He's 16 now. He studies in the morning and works in the afternoon at a small store. My mom cleans offices at night. We get by however we can. Alejandro felt a strange mix of admiration and shame. Here was a 28-year-old woman working hard to support her family and still finding the time and energy to care for his son with love and dedication. And you never thought about studying? Taking a physical therapy course? Lupita laughed, but there was no joy in the sound. With what money, sir? With what time? I leave the house at 6 in the morning, take 2 buses to get here at 7:30, work until 6 in the evening, and take 2 buses back. I get home at 8, help my brother with his homework, make dinner, and by the time I go to sleep, it's almost midnight. On weekends, I clean other houses to earn extra money. Alejandro was silent, absorbing this information. He had no idea about the helper's life beyond the 8 hours she spent in his house. Lupita, can I see the exercises you do with Mateo now, sir? If it's possible. Lupita hesitated. He's already in his pajamas, sir. And we usually do the exercises in the morning before his online classes. In the morning? Yes, sir. I arrive at 7:30, prepare Mateo's breakfast, and while you're still sleeping, we have an exercise session in the garden. Afterward, he takes a bath, has breakfast, and is ready for his classes. Alejandro realized that he knew nothing about his own son's routine. He left the house at 7 a.m. and always came home after 9 p.m. On weekends, he was usually in his home office or out at business meetings. And he likes those exercises? He loves them, sir. At first, it was difficult because he felt pain, but now he asks to do them himself. Yesterday he managed to stand without his crutches for almost 3 minutes straight. 3 minutes! Alejandro's eyes widened. But the physical therapist said that would still take months to happen. Lupita blushed. Maybe Mateo is more motivated now, sir. Motivated because he wants to impress me? She hesitated. He wants to impress you too. Impress me? He always talks about you, Mr. Alejandro. He says that when he can walk well, he'll be able to work with you when he grows up. He says he wants to be just like his dad. Alejandro's eyes welled up. He had no idea that Mateo thought of him that way. At that moment, they heard footsteps on the stairs. It was Mateo coming down slowly with his crutches. "Dad, are you still here?" he said, relieved. "Mateo, you should be sleeping," Alejandro said, but without a scolding tone. "I couldn't sleep. I was thinking, you're not going to fire Aunt Lupita, are you?" The question caught Alejandro by surprise. "Why do you think I would fire her?" "Because you were serious when you told me to go upstairs. And Mom always gets angry when the maids do things she didn't tell them to." Alejandro looked at Lupita, who had lowered her gaze again. "Mateo, come here," Alejandro said, kneeling to be at his son's level. The boy approached, leaning on his crutches. "Do you like Lupita?" "A lot. She's my best friend." "Why is she your best friend, Mateo?" He thought for a moment. "Because she plays with me, she listens to me when I talk, and she's never in a hurry when I take a long time to do things. And she believes I'm going to be able to walk just like the other kids." "And am I your friend too?" Alejandro asked, feeling his heart tighten. Mateo hesitated, and Alejandro saw a sadness on his son's face that cut him like a knife. "You're my dad, not my friend," Mateo said softly. "Dads are important, but friends are the ones who are with you." Alejandro felt as if he had been punched in the stomach. He looked at Lupita, who was also visibly emotional. "Mateo, I would really like to be your friend. Would you teach me too?" Mateo's eyes lit up. "Really, Dad?" "Very really. Then you have to play with me, listen to my stories, and come see my exercises with Aunt Lupita." Alejandro smiled, feeling an emotion he hadn't experienced in years. "It's a deal. Tomorrow morning I want to see those exercises." "Really?" Mateo jumped for joy, almost losing his balance. "Aunt Lupita, did you hear? Dad is going to watch our exercises." Lupita smiled, but Alejandro noticed a concern in her eyes. "Mr. Alejandro, you're not usually home in the mornings." "I will be tomorrow," Alejandro said firmly. "In fact, I think I need to reconsider some priorities." Mateo hugged his father, still leaning on his crutches. "Dad, now I have two best friends, you and Aunt Lupita." Alejandro hugged his son, feeling a love so strong it almost suffocated him. How had he allowed this wonderful child to slip away from his life? "Now go to sleep, champ. Tomorrow will be a special day." After Mateo went upstairs, Alejandro turned to Lupita. "Thank you," he said simply. "For what, sir?" "For taking care of my son when I didn't know how to." Lupita smiled shyly. "He's a special child, sir. Anyone would fall in love with him. But not anyone would dedicate their free time to helping him, nor would anyone have the patience and knowledge you have. Mr. Alejandro, can I ask you a question?" "Of course." "Are you really going to be here tomorrow morning?" Alejandro stopped to think. He had 3 meetings scheduled before 9 a.m. He had a video call with investors from the United States at 8 a.m. He had a report to finish before noon. "Yes," he said, surprising himself. "I'll be here." That night, Alejandro went up to his room, thinking about the conversation. Gabriela hadn't arrived yet, so he took the opportunity to go into Mateo's room. The boy was sleeping, but his crutches were carefully propped up on the nightstand, ready for the next day. Alejandro sat on the edge of the bed and watched his son sleep. How had this child grown so much without him noticing? When had Mateo become this brave and determined person? He took out his cell phone and canceled the 3 meetings for the next morning. Then he wrote an email explaining that the video call would have to be rescheduled. For the first time in his career, Alejandro was putting family first. When Gabriela arrived home, around 11 p.m., Alejandro was waiting for her in the living room. You're home early today, she said, taking off her shoes. Did something happen, Gabriella? We need to talk, he said, and she sat on the sofa next to him. About Mateo, about our family, about what's happening in this house. Gabriella sighed. Alejandro, if this is about more doctors for Mateo, I already told you. It's not about doctors, it's about Lupita, the helper. What about her? Did you know she does therapy exercises with Mateo every day? Gabriella looked away. I knew. And why didn't you tell me? Because you would worry about responsibilities, lawsuits, those things you always worry about. Gabriella, she's helping our son walk better. I know, Alejandro. Gabriella burst out. Do you think I'm blind? Do you think I don't see Mateo is happier? Do you think I don't notice his progress? Then why didn't you tell me? Gabriella got up and started pacing around the living room. Why are you never here, Alejandro? Because when you want to know if Mateo took his medicine, if he went to therapy, if he did his schoolwork. You never ask if he laughed today, if he had fun, if he was happy. Alejandro was silent, absorbing his wife's words. And Lupita, Gabriella continued. Lupita makes Mateo smile. She makes him believe he can achieve anything. So I let her continue because my son needs that. Why did you never tell me you felt this way? Gabriella stopped pacing and looked at her husband. Alejandro, when was the last time we talked about something other than work or Mateo's doctors? Alejandro tried to remember, but he couldn't. I don't remember. Me neither. And do you know why? Because you're not here. Physically maybe you are, but mentally you're always in the office, on the phone, on the computer. I've been raising Mateo alone, Alejandro, and now Lupita is helping me do it. Alejandro felt the guilt spread in his chest. I didn't know you felt that way. Because you never asked? They remained silent for a few minutes. Alejandro was processing everything that had happened that day. First, the revelation about Lupita and Mateo. Now the revelation about his own negligence as a father and husband. Gabriella, I want to change that. Change what? Everything. I want to be present in Mateo's life. In your life. I want us to be a real family. Gabriella looked at him skeptically. Alejandro, you've said that before. Remember when Mateo was born? When he was diagnosed, you always said you were going to change, but work always comes first. This time is different. Why? Because today I saw my son for the first time. I really saw him and I realized that if I don't do something now, I'm going to miss the most important years of his life. Gabriella sighed. Alejandro, I want to believe you, but I need actions, not words. Then, tomorrow morning, come and see. I'm going to watch the exercises that Lupita does with Mateo. You canceled your meetings? I canceled them. Gabriella's eyes widened. In 15 years of marriage, she had never seen Alejandro cancel meetings for family reasons. Maybe it really is different this time, she murmured. It will be, I promise. The next morning, Alejandro woke up at 6:30 a.m., took a shower, got dressed in casual clothes, something he rarely did on weekdays, and went down to the kitchen. Lupita was already there preparing breakfast. Good morning, Lupita, he said, surprising the helper. Good morning, Mr. Alejandro. You're up early today. I am. Where's Mateo? He's still asleep, sir. He usually wakes up at 7:30. And what time do you do the exercises? At 8, sir. After he has breakfast. Alejandro looked at the clock, 7:15. Can I help with anything? Lupita looked surprised. Sir, the breakfast, can I help prepare it? Oh, of course, sir. Mateo likes pancakes on Mondays. Pancakes? I didn't know that. Lupita smiled. He says he needs extra energy to start the week with the exercises. Alejandro watched Lupita prepare the pancake batter, noticing the care she put into everything. She wasn't just preparing food, she was preparing something special for Mateo. Lupita, can I ask you a question? Of course, sir. Why do you care so much about Mateo? Lupita stopped stirring the batter and thought for a moment. Mr. Alejandro, when I was a child, I saw my brother Carlos being rejected by other children because of his difficulties. I saw the sadness in his eyes when he wanted to play, but couldn't keep up. When I look at Mateo, I see the same look that Carlos had when he was little. And what did you do for your brother? I was his best friend. I invented games he could participate in. I encouraged him to try new things. I celebrated every one of his small victories as if it were the greatest achievement in the world. And it worked. Lupita smiled, and Alejandro saw pride in her eyes. It worked. Today, Carlos is in his second year of high school. He works, helps support the family, and is one of the most determined people I know. He still has limitations, but he never lets that stop him from living. And you want the same for Mateo? I want him to be happy, Mr. Enrique. I want him to believe he can achieve anything. Because with this privileged family he has, with all the love and support you can give, he can go much further than my brother ever dreamed of. Enrique felt that mix of admiration and shame again. Lupita was right. Mateo had all the advantages in the world, yet he was sad and lonely because he didn't have what mattered most, attention and love from his parents. At that moment, Mateo appeared in the kitchen, still in his pajamas and with his crutches. "Dad," he shouted in surprise. "You didn't go to work?" "Good morning, champ. Today I'm staying here to watch your exercises, remember?" Mateo smiled from ear to ear. "Really? You're going to see how strong I am." "Of course I will, but first, let's have breakfast. Lupita made special pancakes for you." During breakfast, Enrique observed the interaction between Mateo and Lupita. They talked like old friends, laughing at inside jokes, planning the day's exercises. Mateo was radiant, talking non-stop about things he wanted to show his father. "Dad, did you know I can already go up 3 steps without my crutches?" 3 steps? That's incredible. And I know how to do stretches like the big kids." "What kind of stretches?" "Aunt Lupita taught me. She says it's important to prepare your muscles before exercise." Enrique looked at Lupita, impressed. She really knew what she was doing. At 8 o'clock sharp, they went out to the garden. Gabriela had also come downstairs and was watching from the kitchen window. Enrique noticed that she seemed curious to see how he would react to the exercises. "All right, Mateo," Lupita said, spreading a mat on the grass. "We'll start with the stretches." "Yes, Dad." "Sit here beside me and watch," Enrique said. He sat down on the grass, something he hadn't done in years. Mateo lay down on the mat and began to do stretching movements that surprised Enrique with their precision and seriousness. "Very good, Mateo. Now we're going to work on balance," Lupita said. She helped Mateo stand up and placed his crutches next to him. "Do you remember what we practiced? You're going to try to stand without your crutches for 30 seconds. If you can do it, tomorrow we'll try 45. Can I try a whole minute? Let's take it easy. 30 seconds is very good." Mateo let go of his crutches and stood on his own. Enrique held his breath. The boy trembled a little, clearly straining to keep his balance, but he was doing it. 15 seconds, Lupita counted. "You're doing very well." "Dad, are you watching?" Mateo asked without taking his eyes off a fixed point in front of him. "I'm watching, son. You're incredible." 25 seconds, Lupita continued. "Almost there." 30. Mateo shouted, and at that moment he lost his balance and began to fall. Lupita quickly held him, preventing the fall. "I did it. I got 30 seconds. Mateo was beaming. Enrique was emotional. He got up and went to hug his son. "Mateo, that was fantastic. I'm so proud of you. Now you understand why I love exercising with Aunt Lupita." "I understand perfectly." They continued with the exercises for 30 more minutes. Lupita guided Mateo through different activities, walks with the crutches, leg strengthening exercises, and balance practices. Enrique was impressed with her knowledge and the infinite patience she showed. When they finished, Mateo was tired but happy. "Aunt Lupita, tomorrow can I try 45 seconds without the crutches?" "Of course, but now let's get you bathed and ready for online classes." "Dad, are you going to be here tomorrow too?" Enrique looked at Lupita and then at his son. "Yes, I will. In fact, I was thinking, how about I stay here every morning to watch your exercises?" Mateo hugged his dad so hard he almost knocked him over. Really? Every day. Every day. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, be sure to like and, most importantly, subscribe to the channel. It helps those of us who are just starting out. Now, continuing. That afternoon, after Mateo finished his online classes, Enrique called Lupita for a private conversation in the office. Lupita, I want to make you a proposal. What kind of proposal, sir? I want you to become Mateo's official therapeutic companion. Lupita's eyes widened. Sir, you have knowledge of physical therapy. You have a special connection with my son, and he trusts you completely. I would like to formalize this. But sir, I don't have a diploma. We'll solve that. Would you like to take a physical therapy course? Lupita was silent for a long moment. Mr. Enrique, that would be a dream, but I have no way to. If I paid for the course, would you do it? You would pay for my studies? I would pay for the course, the books, the transportation, and you would continue to receive your normal salary. In fact, I would increase your salary since your responsibilities would be greater. Lupita began to cry. Mr. Enrique, I don't know what to say. Say yes. Mateo needs you, and you deserve the opportunity to study what you love. But what about the housework, the other tasks? We'll hire another person for the domestic tasks. Your focus would be exclusively on Mateo. Lupita couldn't stop crying. Why are you doing this? Because last night I realized that I almost lost the opportunity to get to know my own son, and this morning I saw that you are giving him something that I didn't know how to give him, hope and confidence. I want you to continue doing that, but in an official and recognized way. What if I don't pass the course? You're going to do it, I'm sure. Lupita wiped away her tears and looked at Enrique with determination. Then I accept, Mr. Enrique. I'm going to study a lot and I'll do the best job I can with Mateo. I know you will. In the following days, the house's routine changed completely. Enrique began to leave the house later, participating in Mateo's morning exercises. He canceled several meetings to be present for his son's important moments. Mateo was radiant with his dad's presence. His progress in the exercises accelerated, motivated by the attention he was receiving. In 1 week, he managed to stand for a full minute without his crutches. In 2 weeks, he managed to take 5 steps in a row without support. Gabriella watched these changes with a mix of joy and caution. She was happy to see her husband more present, but she was still afraid that it would be temporary. One morning during the exercises, Mateo achieved something no one expected. He let go of his crutches and walked 8 steps to his dad. Dad, I walked by myself. Mateo shouted, throwing himself into Enrique's arms. Enrique was crying with emotion. You did it, champ. You really did it. Lupita was also crying, proud of Mateo's progress. Aunt Lupita, did you see? I walked. Yes, I saw, my warrior. You're incredible. Gabriella had run out of the house when she heard the shouts and arrived just in time to see Mateo take a few more steps without support. Oh my God, Mateo, she cried, hugging her son. That night, after Mateo had fallen asleep, Enrique and Gabriella talked about the changes that were happening. Enrique, I need to admit something, Gabriella said. What? I was thinking of separating from you. Enrique felt his world fall apart. What? I felt lonely, Enrique. I felt like I was raising Mateo alone while you lived for your work. I couldn't take it anymore. And now I see a different man. I see the father I always wanted you to be, the husband I married. But I need to know if this is going to last. Alejandro took his wife's hand. Gabriella, I almost lost the 2 most important people in my life because of work. That's not going to happen again, I promise. How can you be sure? Because I discovered that nothing is worth more than seeing my son walking towards me, smiling. No business, no money, nothing is worth that. A few weeks later, Alejandro made another discovery about Lupita. He came home early and found her crying in the garden. Lupita, what happened? Nothing, Mr. Alejandro, everything is fine. Clearly it's not. What happened? Lupita hesitated before answering. It's just that one of Mrs. Gabriella's friends came over this morning. She wasn't very kind to me. What do you mean? She said I was taking advantage of your kindness, that I was meddling where I didn't belong. She said the help should stay in her place. Alejandro felt anger rising within him. Who was it? It's not necessary, sir. Lupita. Who was it? Mrs. Sophia, Mrs. Gabriella's friend. Alejandro knew Sophia, an arrogant and prejudiced woman who always strove to show her social superiority. What else did she say? She said I was getting confused. That Mateo wasn't my son and that I should stop acting like his mother. She said that people like me should know our place better. Alejandro was boiling with rage. Lupita, you know that's not true, right? Yes, sir, but it hurt to hear it. And the worst part is that Mateo was nearby and heard everything. He got very upset and defended me. It was embarrassing. Mateo defended you? He told Mrs. Sophia that I was the best person in the world and that she couldn't be mean to me. He got very nervous. Alejandro smiled despite his anger. He was right, and I'm going to resolve this situation. Mr. Alejandro, please don't make a big deal out of this. I don't want to cause problems between Mrs. Gabriella and her friends. Lupita, you're not causing any problems. The problem is the lack of education of people who think they are superior to others. That night, Alejandro talked to Gabriella about the incident. Gabriella, Sophia was here today. Just why? She was disrespectful to Lupita. What do you mean? Alejandro told her what had happened. Gabriella was visibly annoyed. I didn't know that. If I had, I would have thrown her out of the house immediately. Mateo heard everything and felt really bad. Oh my God, poor Mateo, he adores Lupita. Gabriella, I don't want this kind of person in our house anymore. If your friends can't treat our employees with respect, they're not welcome here. I completely agree. I'll talk to Sophia tomorrow and make it very clear that this behavior is not acceptable. The next day, something unexpected happened. Alejandro was in his office when he received a call from an acquaintance, Enrique Gutierrez, the owner of a rival company. Alejandro, I heard you have an exceptional domestic helper there. Why do you want to know that, Enrique? Sophia told me that she's very good with special needs children. Coincidentally, my grandson has cerebral palsy, and we're looking for someone qualified to take care of him. I'd like to make her an offer. Alejandro felt a pit in his stomach. What kind of offer? Double what you're paying. More benefits. A car at her disposal. Full health insurance for her and her family. What do you think, Enrique? Lupita's not for sale. Alejandro, be reasonable. Everyone has a price, and from what I heard, she's just a domestic helper there. For me, she would be an official therapeutic companion. She's already our official therapeutic companion. Oh, really? Sophia didn't mention that. Well, even so, my offer still stands. Can you give me her number? No, Alejandro. Enrique, the answer is no. Lupita is part of our family. If you change your mind, call me. Alejandro hung up the phone worried. He knew that Enrique wouldn't give up easily, and he also knew that the offer was really tempting for someone in Lupita's financial situation. He decided not to say anything about the call, but he was on alert in the following days. His concern proved justified when 3 days later, Lupita asked to speak with him. Mr. Alejandro, I received a job offer. Alejandro's heart raced. What kind of offer? To work as a therapeutic companion for the Gutierrez family. They offered a lot more than I earn here. Do you want to accept? Lupita was silent for a long moment. Mr. Alejandro, I don't know what to do. The money would make a huge difference for my family. My mom could stop working at night. My brother could dedicate himself only to his studies. But I can't imagine leaving Mateo. He's become very important to me. And you've become very important to him too. I know, and that's what's dividing me. I have obligations to my family, but I also feel responsible for Mateo. Alejandro thought carefully before answering. Lupita, I'm not going to try to influence your decision, but I can ask you a few questions. Of course. Are you happy working here? Very happy. Do you feel like you have opportunities for growth here with the physical therapy course you're paying for? Yes. And Mateo, how do you think he would react if you left? Lupita sighed. He would be devastated. Just yesterday he was talking about the plans we have for when he can run without his crutches. So, what's your real hesitation? The money, Mr. Alejandro. My family really needs it. Alejandro nodded. I understand. How much did they offer you? Lupita said the amount, and Alejandro was surprised. It was a truly significant sum. Lupita, can I make you a counteroffer? What do you mean? I can match the salary they offered, in addition to keeping the benefits we already have. The physical therapy course, the health insurance, and I can include health insurance for your mom and your brother too. Lupita's eyes widened. Mr. Alejandro, you don't have to. Yes, I do. Mateo needs you and you deserve to be valued for the exceptional work you do. But that's a lot of money. Lupita, you saved my marriage and helped me reconnect with my son. What is that worth? Lupita started to cry. Mr. Alejandro, I don't know what to say. Say you're going to stay. I'm going to stay. Of course, I'm going to stay. That afternoon, Mateo was playing in the garden when he saw Lupita tidying up her things. He ran to her worried. Aunt Lupita, are you leaving? No, my love. I'm going to stay here with you. Forever. For a long, long time. Mateo hugged Lupita tightly. That's good, because I still have a lot of things to learn from you, and when I can run, I'm going to run to you every day. And I'll be here waiting, my warrior. A few weeks later, something happened that no one expected. Mateo was doing his morning exercises when he achieved something extraordinary. He ran. It wasn't many feet, but it was a few consecutive steps at a faster speed than walking. Dad, Aunt Lupita, I ran. Mateo shouted, radiant with joy. Alejandro and Lupita ran to him, excited. Mateo, that was incredible. Alejandro said, hugging his son. My warrior has become an athlete, Lupita said, hugging him too. It hurt. Now I can play with the other kids as an equal. Yes, you can, my love. You can do whatever you want. That night, Alejandro reflected on everything that had happened in the last few months. He had almost lost his family because of work, but a dedicated domestic helper had saved not only his son but the entire family dynamic. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, be sure to like and, most importantly, subscribe to the channel. It helps those of us who are just starting out. Now, continuing. A few months later, the day of Mateo's preschool graduation arrived. It was a special event where the children would demonstrate their skills and talents. Alejandro had canceled all his commitments to be present. Dad, are you sure you can come? Mateo asked the morning of the graduation. I'm absolutely sure, champ. I wouldn't miss it for the world. And is Aunt Lupita going to be there too? Of course, we're your official fan club. At school, Mateo was nervous. He had prepared a special presentation where he would show how he had overcome his motor difficulties. Aunt Lupita, what if I fall in front of everyone? He asked as he got ready. Mateo, you've fallen many times during our training sessions and you've always gotten up. If you fall today, you'll get up too, but I bet you won't fall. Why are you so sure? Because you're the most determined child I know and because you trained a lot for this moment. When it was Mateo's turn to present, he walked to the center of the stage without his crutches. The audience was silent, realizing that this was something special. My name is Mateo Hernandez, he began in a firm voice. When I was younger, I couldn't walk well. I needed crutches and I was afraid to try new things. Alejandro and Gabriela were emotional in the audience. Lupita was by their side, equally moved. But then I met someone very special, Mateo continued. Aunt Lupita taught me that when you train and don't give up, you can achieve anything. She taught me to be strong, to be brave, and to believe in myself. Mateo then did something that surprised everyone. He ran from one end of the stage to the other without stumbling, without hesitation, with perfect balance. I want to dedicate this run to 3 people, Mateo said, out of breath but smiling. To my dad, who learned to be my best friend, to my mom, who always took care of me, and to Aunt Lupita, who taught me that I can fly if I want to. The audience erupted in applause. Alejandro was openly crying, as were Gabriela and Lupita. And now, Mateo continued, I want to show you something I learned. Aunt Lupita, come here. Lupita was surprised, but Mateo called her to the stage. This is Lupita, Mateo said to the audience. She's the most important person in my life after my parents. She believed in me when I didn't even believe in myself. And I want to tell everyone that she's the best teacher in the world. Mateo hugged Lupita on the stage, and the audience gave them a standing ovation. Alejandro and Gabriela also went up on stage to hug Mateo and Lupita. Dad, Mateo said, still on stage. Can you tell everyone something? What, son? That Aunt Lupita is no longer our employee, she's family. Alejandro took the microphone. My son is right, he said with an emotional voice. Lupita is not just our employee, she is part of our family. She saved my son, she saved my marriage, and she taught me what really matters in life. The audience applauded again, and Lupita cried with emotion. After the presentation, several people from the school approached Alejandro and Gabriela to congratulate Mateo and to meet Lupita. Many parents of children with special needs wanted to know about the methods she used. You should think about opening a therapy center, one of the mothers suggested. There are many children who could benefit from Lupita's work. Alejandro looked at Lupita, who was chatting animatedly with other moms about exercises and motivation techniques. You know, Gabriela, he said to his wife, maybe that's not a bad idea. What do you mean? A therapy center specializing in children with Lupita as the coordinator after she graduates. Would you invest in that? I would. And do you know why? Because I saw firsthand how her work can transform the life of a child and an entire family. That night at home, Alejandro called Lupita to talk. Lupita, can I ask you a crazy question? Of course, Mr. Alejandro. Would you like to have your own therapy center someday? Lupita laughed. Mr. Alejandro, that's too big a dream for someone like me. Why do you say that? Because opening a therapy center requires a lot of money, a lot of knowledge, a lot of experience. I'm still learning. And what if I told you I'm willing to invest in that dream? Lupita stopped smiling. What do you mean? I'm thinking of opening a therapy center for children with special needs, a place where every child receives the same type of attention and care that you gave Mateo. And I'd like you to be the therapeutic director. Mr. Alejandro, Is this for real? Completely serious. Of course, you would have to finish your university degree first, maybe do some specializations, but the project can be developed little by little. And Mateo would still be your priority. In fact, he could be a kind of ambassador for the center, showing other children that it's possible to overcome difficulties. Lupita was silent for a long moment. Mr. Alejandro, if this really happens, it would be the biggest dream of my life coming true. Then let's make it happen. 2 years later, the Luz de Esperanza, Light of Hope, Children's Therapy Center was being inaugurated. It was a modern, colorful place, with state-of-the-art equipment and a team of dedicated professionals. Lupita, already a graduate in physical therapy with specializations in pediatrics, was the therapeutic director. Mateo, at 6 years old and running normally, was at the inauguration as a special guest. He had become the symbol of the center, inspiring other children with his story of overcoming adversity. Aunt Lupita, Mateo said, running toward her on the day of the inauguration. You did it. You have your own place to help children. I did it, my warrior. And do you know who inspired me to never give up? Who? A brave little boy who taught me that when you believe and work hard, dreams come true. Alejandro watched the scene with pride. His company now had a new focus. In addition to traditional business, he had created a social responsibility division that supported projects like the therapy center. Alejandro, Gabriela said, approaching him, do you regret anything? I regret taking so long to understand what really matters, but I don't regret anything we did after I learned the lesson. And what was the lesson? That sometimes the most important people in our lives arrive unexpectedly and that love and dedication are worth more than any amount of money. Mateo ran to his parents, radiant with joy. Dad, Mom, did you see how many kids came today? Aunt Lupita said she's going to help them all get strong like me. Yes, we saw, son. And do you know what the best part is? What? It's that all of this started because one special person decided to believe in you when you needed it most. Mateo smiled and looked at Lupita, who was chatting with the parents of other children. Dad, can I tell you a secret? Of course. I always knew Aunt Lupita was special. From the first day, I felt that she was going to change our lives. And how did you know? Because she looked at me like I was normal, not like I was broken. She looked at me like I could achieve anything. Alejandro smiled, realizing that his son, even being so young, had understood something that had taken him so long to understand as an adult, that the true value of a person is not in what they have, but in what they are capable of giving to others. A few months after the center's inauguration, Alejandro received an unexpected call. It was from Enrique Gutierrez, the businessman who had tried to steal Lupita years earlier. Alejandro, I need to talk to you. About what, Enrique? About the therapy center you opened. My grandson has been a patient there for 3 months. Oh, really? And how has he been doing? That's why I'm calling. It's extraordinary, Alejandro. In 3 months, my grandson has made progress he didn't achieve in 2 years of traditional therapy. Alejandro smiled. Lupita is truly exceptional. It's more than that. Their whole team is different. They don't treat the children like patients. They treat them as unique and special human beings. My grandson is happy for the first time since the accident. I'm very glad to hear that. Alejandro, I need to apologize. For what? For trying to take Lupita from you all those years ago. At the time, I only saw her as a skilled employee. I didn't understand that she was part of your family, that there was a much deeper connection. I understand. Now I see that she was in the right place with the right people. If I had managed to take her away back then, maybe she would never have had the opportunity to develop as she did with you. Perhaps. Anyway, I wanted to thank you for not letting me make that mistake, and I wanted to congratulate you for seeing her potential before any of us did. After hanging up the phone, Alejandro reflected on the conversation. It was curious how things had turned out. If he had let Lupita go back then, several lives would have been different. Mateo might not have developed as he did. His marriage to Gabriela might not have been saved. And dozens of children who were now being treated at the center would not have the opportunity to grow with the same care and attention. That afternoon, when Mateo came home from school, Alejandro was waiting for him in the garden, the same place where it had all begun years earlier. Dad, are you home early today? That's right. I wanted to talk to you about something. About what? About that day when I came home and saw you helping Lupita clean the floor. Mateo smiled. I remember that day. You were surprised because you had never seen me do exercises. Exactly. And do you know what I was thinking at that moment? What? I was thinking that you were the bravest child I had ever seen. There you were, with all your difficulties, trying to help someone who was taking care of you. But it was normal to help Aunt Lupita. She always helped me. Exactly. And that's what made me realize who you really were. You weren't just a child with limitations. You were a generous, determined, and loving child. And now I know that day changed our family forever because that was when I learned to truly see you and when I learned to value people like Lupita. Mateo thought for a moment. Dad, can I tell you something? Of course. That day also changed my life. How? Because it was the first day you looked at me like I was special in a good way, not special in a sad way. Alejandro felt his eyes well up with tears. Mateo, you have always been special in a good way. I'm the one who took a long time to realize it. That's okay, Dad. The important thing is that now you know. They were silent for a moment, looking at the garden where Mateo had taken his first steps without crutches, where Lupita had spent countless hours teaching and encouraging, where a family had reconnected. Dad, Mateo said, breaking the silence. Yeah. Do you think all families have a Lupita? What do you mean? A person who comes and changes everything for the better, who helps us be better? Alejandro thought about the question. I don't think all families are lucky enough to find a Lupita, Mateo, but I think all families have the opportunity to be a Lupita for someone. What do you mean? We can be for other people what Lupita was for us. We can believe in other people when they don't believe in themselves. We can help other people discover what they're capable of. Mateo smiled. Is that what we're doing at Aunt Lupita's center? Exactly. We're helping other families discover what we discovered, that love and dedication can overcome any obstacle. At that moment, Lupita arrived home from work as she did every day. Mateo ran to her as he always did. Aunt Lupita, how was your day at the center? It was wonderful, my warrior. Today a little girl took her first steps, just like you did a few years ago. She was really happy, she was radiant. And do you know what she said? What? That she wanted to be strong like Mateo Hernandez. Mateo blushed with pride. She said that? That's right. You've become an inspiration to many children, you know. Alejandro watched the interaction between Mateo and Lupita, noticing how even after all these years they maintained the same special connection from the first day. Lupita, Alejandro said, can I ask you a question? Of course, Mr. Alejandro. Do you regret anything? Your decision to stay here when you had other opportunities. Lupita looked at Mateo, then at Alejandro, and smiled. Mr. Alejandro, if I had left, I would have missed the opportunity to see this child become the incredible young man he is today. I would have missed the opportunity to see a family reconnect, and I would have missed the opportunity to fulfill a dream I didn't even know I had. What dream? The dream of making a difference in the lives of dozens of children, not just one. The dream of having a career I love, not just a job. The dream of being part of a family that values me for who I am, not just for what I do. Mateo hugged Lupita. Aunt Lupita, do you know what the best part is? What, my love? Our story isn't over, it's just beginning. What do you mean? Because now you're going to help many kids like you helped me. And I'll be there to help too, to show them that it's possible to achieve anything. Lupita looked at Alejandro and Gabriela, who had joined the group in the garden. You know, she said, when I was little, my mom always used to say that God puts the right people in our path at the right time. Back then, I didn't really understand what that meant. And now you understand? Gabrielle asked. Now I understand that each of us was exactly where we were supposed to be, when we were supposed to be. Mateo needed someone who believed in him. You needed to reconnect as a family, and I needed to discover my purpose in life. And did you discover it? Mateo asked. I did, my warrior. My purpose is to help children and families discover their own strength. And it all started here, in this garden, with a brave little boy who taught me that the biggest miracles happen when we don't give up. Alejandro looked around, seeing his family gathered in the garden where everything had begun. Mateo, now a healthy and self-confident child. Gabriela, his wife, who had learned to trust his love again, and Lupita, who had stopped being just an employee to become a daughter of the heart. You know what I learned from all this? Alejandro said. What, Dad? That sometimes we think we're giving someone an opportunity, when in reality it's that person who's giving us the greatest opportunity of our lives. Opportunity for what? Mateo asked. An opportunity to be better. An opportunity to love more. And to make a difference in the world. Lupita smiled, her eyes shining with tears of happiness. Mr. Alejandro, the only thing I wanted when I started working here was to support my family. I never imagined I would gain so much more than that. What did you gain? I gained a second family. I gained a purpose. I gained the opportunity to see that it's possible to transform lives when you act with love. Mateo looked at the three adults around him and smiled. You know what? I think we should do this every day. Do what? Gabrielle asked. Meet here in the garden and remember how lucky we are because there are a lot of people in the world who don't have what we have. And what do we have? Alejandro asked, curious about his son's answer. We have love, we have a family that cares, and we have Aunt Lupita, who is the most special person in the world. Alejandro hugged his son, feeling immense gratitude for everything that had happened. If someone had told him years earlier that a domestic helper would completely change his life, he would have laughed. But now he understood that angels don't always arrive with wings. Sometimes they arrive with an apron and a heart full of love. Mateo, Alejandro said, you're right. We're going to do this every day. We're always going to remember how lucky we are. And we're always going to remember, Lupita added, that every new day is an opportunity to be the difference in someone's life, just as you were in mine. As the sun set in the Hernandez family garden, for people unexpectedly united by fate hugged, knowing that their lives had been transformed forever by a seemingly casual encounter between a workaholic businessman, a determined domestic helper, and a boy who just needed someone to believe in him. And so what began as a simple early arrival home was transformed into the most beautiful lesson about family, love, and the transformative power of seeing the best in people, even when they can't yet see it themselves. End of the story. Now, tell me, what did you think of this moving story? Do you think Alejandro made the right decision by valuing Lupita? Leave your honest opinion in the comments and tell me where you're following us from. If you have a similar experience or know someone who went through something like this, share it with us and don't forget to leave that naughty like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss other stories that will move you. Thank you very much for staying with me until the end.